still think there's a meme coin super cycle still in the books, because the meme coin super cycle, based on the name, tells me meme coins is going to be the next asset.
But it's free cash from this perspective that it's just not money that they thought they were going to get. No, I mean, when liquidity comes flowing back into the markets, without necessarily having to get new participants in the form of retail.
The content presented in this podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered as financial advice, and listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research or consult with a qualified professional before making any investment decisions.
Crypto flip.
I had 3% of supply of WIF. In the first week, it went down 50%, and I swapped it to ETH. Would have been worth 100 mil at all-time high. Now the girl I've been in love with for 5 years won't talk to me and became an escort to survive. I want to make...
What?
That's crazy.
Oh my days.
I want to make as much money...
What?
Yeah, you heard right. I want to make as much money as I can so she never has to work again and take care of her. It's hell. So some men are waiting for the trenches to get the woman out of working life.
Bro, she's not your woman, man. She belongs to the streets, bro. She belongs to the streets. Bro, what do you mean, fam? You out here simping, and the girl of your life or the love of your life is out here, and she's becoming a escort. If she's a real one, she will suffer with you through this downturn of her portfolio and hold it down. She don't listen to an escort. You know what I mean? She was probably an escort before you met her, and then she just go back to her normal job because, you know what I mean? You made certain promises you can't keep, you get me? But at the end of the day, I mean, you can look at it two ways, you know. You have 3% of supply of WIF, you whiffed it, and no pun intended, and, you know, you swapped it, at least you got something out of it. So it's not the end or be all. You owe the ETH now, and obviously, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I mean, a lot of people sold. I mean, don't let me go through the story. A lot of people fumbled millions and millions of dollars on peanuts. You know what I mean? I was one of them. So the 100 million, you're probably never gonna get 100 million anyway. To be real with you, I won't lie to you. So what you can't do now is don't overtrade now, trying to catch it falling knife. So just stay off. Just leave it in ETH. Don't try to now go back to meme coins and back to ETH. Either ETH or Bitcoin only. That will be my advice for you. But on the other side of the picture, where you said the girl you're in love with become an escort, that's a sticky one, man. I think she's not your girl, man. She's not your girl. That's what I'm gonna say. She's not a girl. She's not a girl. She's not good for you, man. You know what I mean? I think you dodged a bullet there. So if I were you, I'll let her stay on the streets. But if you want problems, then obviously try and play a hero, innit? So I have to say this guy, man.
Yeah, you ever seen that meme that says, I want problems, always? That's my man.
Literally.
Yeah. But I want to start here. So basically, he had 3% of WIF. Now, 3% doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're talking about a market cap, in relation to the market cap of a project, 3% is a lot. So
what do you mean?
God, lot. Mills upon mills, 100 mil.
At one point, bro, listen, at one point, the all-time high market cap for WIF was 4 billion. So 3% of 4 billion is actually, so he was wrong. He would have had 400 mil.
Well, maybe this was before it reached that all-time high. But yeah, 400 mil is, this is nuts, man.
Like, well, let's see, 1, 2... I guess it would what?
Yeah, 400 mil is crazy.
120 mil. He would have had a 120 mil.
A 120. Even
120 mil. 120 mil.
Yeah.
But it wasn't meant for you, man. It wasn't meant for you.
Apparently not. And neither is this girl, because becoming an escort is crazy.
Bro, crazy work, bro. Crazy work.
No,
I don't know. She's not your girl. She's not your girl.
Cost of living crisis, all of that. But this is different. So, boy, You're gonna have to chalk that one up to the game and keep it pushing. As far as crypto stuff is concerned, boy,
It's salvageable, no?
like an trench.
That's salvageable. That's salvageable because she's still got ETH. Like he's only down 40%. I mean, 50%. So if he just, I know right now he's still suffering.
I'll definitely get out of that ETH. That's the next thing you have to do before you come back with another story.
What you were like? Wales was saying 3K ETH is programmed for June. We saying,
but maybe it happens. But it's about what happens relative to the rest of the market.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Say that. I'll say that.
Let's go on to the next one. At one point, I opened an ETH trade with a position size of 386 ETH. Basically, everything I had.
Well,
I went all in.
Oh, sure.
My unrealized P&L reached $148,000, and instead of taking profits, I took a screenshot. That screenshot showed my total balance at the time, $236,000. By June 2024, I had lost everything. Now I'm 22 years old, and all I have left is that screenshot. Boy, Professor was Wales.
That's an L. That's an L. I mean, we always say this. We always say this, right? I mean, I think he said, is he a student or something? He's moving like a student anyway. But first of all, put in your old ETH portfolio, which was perfectly safe and spot. You wanted to be a trader, and then yes, I mean you got to move. I mean, why is 100% gain not enough for a trader? Even Wall Street trader, that's more than enough. Annually, a fund that does 10% plus, it's a top fund. Top 20%, your super fund. You know what I mean? And now doing 50% year on year, I mean, dude, you're just your super asset. You're basically Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is to this date is 60% up year on year. So you're tracking basically. Imagine I tell you, oh, I can track the performance of Bitcoin, dude. I'll be getting so much money. But you took screenshots.
You know what it is? It's a case of
bro. He didn't even put like, bro, the initial investment of 386 ETH. He didn't even say, you know what? Let me return that back to the ledger, innit? Let me put that back to the side and play with the profit. He took screenshots and what? Posted it online.
Yeah, man. He needed a clout.
I have nothing else to say, bro. I have nothing else to say, my bro.
He needed a clout, but now for him, like, I hope you feel like accomplished and happy, because that's all you have when you're sleeping that night. You have that screenshot, but when you look in your balance and it's a 0.00, that's the reality of things. So it's a harsh lesson to learn, but to be honest, you kind of got lucky anyway, because you went all in. It could have gone either way, and there was no risk in mitigation. So
well said, bro. Well said. Which brings my last point, bro. So I had to cut you off. He wasn't trading; he was gambling. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, true. But you're 22, so time is on your side. And you might only have that screenshot, but I'm sure you can build back up if you put in the work, and see what you can achieve. But with that being said, welcome back to the Crypto Flip Podcast. I'm your host, Harris King, and I am joined once again with my co-host, Deji. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on audio platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to leave a review. It really helps us create more episodes. And yeah, you want to hear more of the boys, so do us a favor. So, we have some big news from Trump. Trump Media is creating a Bitcoin treasury of $2.5 billion with a B dollars. So they're going to be, we all know MicroStrategy have a treasury. We all know that Tesla have a small treasury. And now it seems like Trump Media is also getting on the action with a sizable amount of Bitcoin. So that is pretty interesting news. And obviously Trump is the president. So maybe He may do some things to make it more beneficial for him, which may benefit us as Bitcoin and crypto holders in general. So, what do you make of the news? And what do you think?
This news actually had for me personally, the way I view it, there's two sides of this news. I mean, I view it in two different ways, positive and negative. I'll start with the positive because I don't like to start on a negative note. Obviously, this is bullish, long term. More and more companies are starting to use Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, as hedge against monetary aggressive policies. And I think whether or not you view Bitcoin as a long-term safe asset, I think everyone should have a piece of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. It just helps edge against the erosion of cash value. Because we know obviously the future is necessarily cash. We'll become more and more of a cashless world. And as inflation and purchasing power decreases, you need assets that are stable long-term. Obviously, short-term, Bitcoin could have volatility. Bitcoin could sneeze tomorrow. Trump could raise tariffs, spook, or there could be something wrong with the hash pool rate, or miners decide to kind of wage war. And if it's going to happen, you never know in the short term. That's kind of close to what blacks, that might be seen as black swanish. And, Bitcoin could obviously fall 20%, but at the same time, you could also pump 20%. So it's like, just about depending on where you view Bitcoin long term. I think obviously Trump is just further doubling down on the fact that he thinks Bitcoin is one of those safe digital gold that you can invest in long term to reap the benefits. So I think this is bullish. I think even, I don't know if we're going to cover this topic, but more and more companies have actually done the same thing. Chemical based companies that have a lot of cash and they want to hedge against purchasing power. Love that. A lot of people doing that. Even GameStop, which I know we're probably going to cover as well, just purchased some Bitcoin. So the trend is obviously here. I think throughout this whole year, we'll see more and more institutional demand, and it just falls right under it. So that's my first premise. Secondly, where I'm a little bit concerned is one, as a president, it's ethical for you to be doing. You know what I mean? I know it's not you doing it, it's your company, which you own. So it's like, you know what I mean? How ethical do people view this? I think right now, if you see that kind of fall will be short term. I think long term is where it will probably have some ramification because he's in there for another 4 years. So we see how that plays out in terms of this cycle plays out. And lastly, like strategy, all these guys are raising debt to buy Bitcoin. I would like to know how much of that 2.5 billion is actual cash value, or are you raising debt against your assets to buy Bitcoin? And the reason why I'm saying that is if more and more companies are coming in, this quote unquote institutional demand that we're seeing, increases, I'm curious to see which part of this, because there are companies that have stockpile of cash. You have Thingies Fund, what's his name, Warren Buffett, that's sitting on piles and piles of cash. I think they got about 700 million cash that they're sitting on. Plus, Apple's got a ton of cash that's sitting on because they just need to sit on cash. I'm wondering if those guys come into the market and buy Bitcoin, that would be super bullish because we're assuming they're using their cash as a leverage and the assets to purchase Bitcoin. But these companies are just raising debt constantly over and over again. I wonder how much cash that they're actually using to actually back Bitcoin. I think that's something that I'm interested in knowing. I'm going to dig deeper into that. I think more and more, I think this is obviously going to be a trend for the whole year. I think in the same way the narrative last year was Mimcoin. I think this year is going to be a lot like Bitcoin dominance kind of rising to the roof, then followed by altcoin season, followed by a rally of ETH. So I'm curious to see how much percentage of that purchase was made with cash and how much of it was made with debt that they're raising. Because I'm starting to become a little bit concerned. Obviously, in the short term, I'm not worried because I think we're destined for the skies. But long term, I'm worried. I'll be like, I'm worried.
Yeah, I believe that they said they're selling off some stock to raise money to buy Bitcoin. So yeah, they are obviously they have plans to fund the purchase. But yeah, I mean, how do I view this? I think it's bullish as far as being in a crypto-friendly environment. Obviously, this would only be able to happen if the president himself was bullish on Bitcoin and crypto in general, which it appears that he and his administration are, especially in comparison to previous administrations where they've had Operation Chokehold, where they, stifle innovation within the US regarding Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But now, that is changed, and it is a refreshing change. But obviously, you talked about, is it ethical and stuff like that? And there are those considerations. But at the end of the day, we are investors and we care about making money. So how can we, leverage this to make money? Well, the president's company is putting Bitcoin on his balance sheet. It's safe to say that there isn't going to be anything at least punitive coming out as far as regulation is concerned, or at least you would have hoped so. And I don't foresee that being the case anyway. I think if anything, there's the Bitcoin Strategic Fund, which may come in some fashion. There's other, potential capital gains things which may come down the line. And all of this lines up for a good year or a few years as far as Bitcoin is concerned, due to the fact that Trump is bullish on Bitcoin and crypto. And, we don't know what's going to happen after Trump has finished his term, and we don't even know what's going to happen during the rest of his term. He may change his mind. He's a very volatile character. Some days he loves something and then he will just switch for whatever reason. But I'm pretty happy with the fact that, he's done this, or they've done this. And I think it's, good news. And some other people that may have been benefiting from good news are people like you, people like me, people like Deji. And what do I mean by this? I mean that $5 billion worth of liquidity is going to be injected into the market. How, you ask? Well, FTX is distributing the tokens or stables this week, the money that has been owed to creditors. So I never use FTX, so I'm not going to get any of the funds. But I know many people that did, and yeah, it's going to be good news for them and good news for us, because we haven't really seen retail come in since, the height of Trump's token and, some of the meme coin highs and things like that. So to get this fresh liquidity, I think would be good. It will be interesting to see where that liquidity flows. What do you think? Where do you think it's going to start flowing into?
I mean, again, there's a two side to this news as well. I mean, if you've been burned or pissed, I think if you're holding, if you had ETH on FTX, ETH is basically practiced to the same current value that they was back then. So ETH hasn't really moved. And if you're holding Bitcoin, they're not giving you 100K plus, they're giving you value of, I think, 20, 30K or something. So, I mean, like, are they that they don't want to be in the market anymore, or are they thought, I'm already here anyway, I'm in stables, I'm in whatever, I might just keep trading. So I think it's more likely to be they'll probably keep trading, because DJs will always be DJs. The reason why they want FTX, they were looking to go to the moon, and then obviously people got burned, and obviously it's not funny because people lost their life savings and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think overall it's bullish. It's just more liquidity to coming into this market. Whether or not they don't blow their account, it's not. I mean, that's a different story for another day. But I think overall it's bullish. And in terms of the chain that it'll flow into, I think easily it's probably going to be Solana. I think in terms of, if I'm to make a trade today and you're asking, what you seen was undervalued chain that I can still invest in, that I can, still catch 200%, 300% potentially if you get lucky in terms of an entry and not a late long. So I would say probably Sui or Solana. So I think it's most likely between those two that will probably get an influx. So we'll see how it goes. But I want to have my eye peeking into the trenches to see how the chains are flowing. For sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that Well, firstly, I think it's a great thing that we're seeing some new liquidity, or technically it's old liquidity, but you know what I mean. Some liquidity come flowing back into the markets without necessarily having to get new participants in the form of retail. So I think that's a good thing. It's interesting to mention the fact that, you know, some people have been burned before. Obviously, all of these people have been burned by FTX, but it appears as though they are getting compensation in the form of stables. And not only that, it's more than they originally put in, as far as USD value is concerned. Obviously, in terms of real-time value, depending on the tokens they were in, they're probably down. But at least what they're up on what they put in. So there's that. When it comes to what I think is going to happen to the funds, I believe that a lot of it is going to flow into the trending narratives. I think a lot of it will also remain in stables because either people aren't going to be bothered because it may be a nominal amount that they don't really care to, you know, move. I don't think too much is going to leave crypto because I don't think people are going to be off-ramping like that. And I'll tell you why. I believe that if you have a sizable amount and you've gotten this money back, I think you'll probably want to put it to work. If you've got a little amount, you probably don't see it as worth your while taking it out. I think people will take it out, but only in special circumstances. But yeah, I think especially if things start mooning, as I predict they will in the next, say, quarter or so, people will definitely deploy that. And it's basically free cash in a sense, even though it's theirs. And yes, it's slightly more than they may have initially invested. But it's free cash from this perspective that it's just not money that they thought they were going to get again. When they saw the crash of FTX, we've seen this dance 100 times. Like, I've seen exchanges crash, and I've even been part of an exchange crash, a small one. So it didn't burn me that badly, but I still haven't received those funds yet. So you come into these things thinking, that money's gone. And now to receive it again, I think it's, we'll definitely see a lot of it flow into Solana because that's just where we see a lot of activity. And, you know, maybe some of the trending narratives. So keep your eye on what's trending and keep a pulse on what's going on in crypto. But speaking of keeping your pulse on what's going on in crypto, there is a conference coming up. I believe it's the Bitcoin conference. And every year...
I thought it already started.
It's
starting soon.
It's either started or is starting soon. But it's definitely coming up. But every year, it appears to be a buy the rumor, sell the news event because, you know, it's notable people there, things are happening, connections or whatnot. Do you think it's going to follow the same trend, or do you think that we can maybe break out of that trend, see an uptick?
I mean,
based on some bullish news there.
Yeah, I think today is the last day of the Bitcoin conference. It started 2 days ago on 27th, 29th, and we haven't really had any mad push up. Actually, shorts have been printing more long term, but we seem to be caught in a 5% range. So maybe we break up that range very soon. But I mean, you never know. I mean, there hasn't been much volatility, and then it'll be interesting to see how the monthly candle close. But it just seems to me we're consolidated for a bigger move. But that's what I feel like. I feel like we could easily get rejected from here, but I think we got one more small move, maybe a new all-time high or a retest of that all-time high, and then I think we capitulate. I honestly think we do. Because I don't know if you noticed, we've had tons and tons of great news. FIFA come to the space, Bank of Russia come to the space, Pakistan doing their Bitcoin reserve, Trump launching his own Bitcoin reserve. Like, dude, we're about to enter a coma of good news. Like, it's so much good news. Like, like the price is just like, what's going on? Like, only the top blue chip coins are moving, and even in the meme coin space as well. I mean, XPS is up 20% today. Just I'm just not convinced we're destined for the skies right now, honestly. I think next month will be interesting. Where is FOMC? I think that'll be interesting. I think the next one is probably in a couple of weeks. Yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll probably dump around that time, but we'll see. I mean, whether they cut interest rate or not. If they keep it the same, bearish. If the cut rate, short term bearish, but then I guess I think we'll probably rally up to the upside. So, yeah, I think this Bitcoin conference hasn't yielded anything in terms of volatility. And today being the last day, may have been more opportunity for that to happen. So I will be careful where I place my shorts and where I place my longs. I'm not interested in shorts around this area. If I see like we're not, because right now we're just ranging right now and we're a critical point of resistance. We're like, I'm looking at Solana now, it's 172 and it's just struggling to break past that 185 range, which is acted as a resistance for a long time. So, you know what I mean? Do we get a rally to 200, then reject on there? Or do we just tank? Well, I think this is too much good news. I think we have one more rally and yeah, bro, there's been so much good news, man. And then the move has already happened. If you know what I'm saying, like we've had the Bitcoin do its rally from self 3K to 110K, I think, or 112K actually, yeah, 112. And ETH hasn't done much. It's gone back to 2,700. Solana's gone back to 170, 185. Hype has probably been one of the best performing one because it's up almost 240%, but it sounds kind of like slowing down. The whale that actually traded a massive size of IP actually dumped yesterday, so I'm curious to see what happens. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think we get some volatility in any day soon?
There's nothing to suggest to me that that's going to be the case. Not off the back of the Bitcoin conference and just in general. I think we may go sideways, and then I think we can do another leg up, create some new all-time highs. Maybe prior to getting a bit of a pullback and then launching into that big blow off top that we've always kind of been waiting for. So,
good question. Because I know, like, if Bitcoin does another all-time high, I won't be surprised because there's demand for it, right?
Yeah.
And I saw something recently. ETF Solana. I mean, Solana ETFs in the works. I think there's something else that was raised as well. Was it Dogecoin? Anyway, some other ones was raised, and demand is there. Do you think we'll make an all-time high with these smaller tokens like Solana, for example? That's a more popular one. Do you think Solana prints a new all-time high in the next 30 days?
Yeah, I think I'm going to divide that into two types of tokens. So I think we're going to just talk about the legacy tokens. So tokens from previous cycles and then tokens from this cycle. I think if you're in a token from the previous cycle, with a few exceptions, maybe Solana, maybe one or two others, then I think the majority of those tokens are not going to exceed the all-time high from the previous cycle. If we're talking about tokens from this cycle, I think a greater proportion of those tokens will exceed all-time highs from this cycle. But even that is not guaranteed, but I think more than will. Why? Well, as we see in this market, it's been very rotationary. People love the brand new shiny toy, and people are sort of jumping on new narratives. So I think that kind of validates or gives me an indication as to why I expect. Obviously, we have seen some of the Dino coins pump prior in this market, and I'm not saying they won't pump. What I am saying, though, is if we're talking about all-time highs, looking at some of those highs and looking at where we are now, I don't think there is enough concentration in terms of capital versus the amount of tokens out there to send it. Now, if we didn't have, this meme coin super cycle and all of these tokens, and there wasn't as much dilution, then my answer would be very different. But I still think that is a problem. And until
you still think that's a meme coin super cycle still in the books? Because the meme coin super cycle, based on the name, tells me meme coins is going to be the next asset after basically L1s and Bitcoin. So we'll basically talk about in terms of capitalization, it was going to be third. You know what I mean? Do you still think that's on the table?
Well, I didn't mention it in those terms. I was just talking about it as far as capital flowing into meme coins and meme coins creating loads of tokens, a disproportionate amount of tokens compared to, say, altcoins, especially when you consider the lack of utility, etc. So, do I still believe that, or do I believe that meme coins are going to be, say, the second or third biggest narrative after Bitcoin and some alts, maybe large cap L1s and stuff? I think they'll do well. And I think because they are what they are, I think they will rise sharply. I think there will be the greatest multiples. But do I think that as an asset class, it will shoot to however many billions to be second or third? I'm not too sure about that, but I definitely think if you want an outside risk asset, then I think that's one to perhaps pay attention to. But obviously, you have to be comfortable with the risk when you're looking at things like that. So, yeah, I mean, even right now, like I have certain bots that tell me about tokens that are gaining momentum and how much they're increasing by and decreasing by. And a lot of those meme coins are still getting 2x, 5x, 10x, even in these conditions, which obviously, yes, we're close to an all-time high in Bitcoin, but as far as altcoins and meme coins are concerned, we're still not quite there yet. So if we can do it in these conditions, when we do get that blow off top and, people reallocate the Bitcoin into altcoins and eventually meme coins, I do think we will see some very, very shocking numbers. So I think it's wise to just be aware that may be the case.
So, last question. So in terms of like the legacy coins and the Dino coins, minus Bitcoin, I think you're allowed to put Miracle aside, and please include Ether, Solana. Give me an example from each category that you think is likely to outperform the order. Like top of my head, XPX is mooning right now. I mean, XPX looks like it's going back to, next existence 137. And then I'm sure Murad will be posting up very soon. But but I'm just curious. Like, give me an example of a coin that you think will outperform probably. Maybe touch the previous all-time high versus a classic one that probably wouldn't even come close to all-time high before we could picture that again.
Okay, so coins I think can eclipse their all-time high versus coins which I don't think will. I believe that ETH will not go past this all-time high, and if it does, it's going to be very marginal. Versus something that could probably smash its all-time high, something like SUI. I don't think XRP is going to go past its all-time high. I think it's already had its run. It will probably pump again when we go have our blow off top, but I don't think it's going to set a new all-time high. What else?
Great example so far.
Yeah, I'm trying to think more. What else. I don't think Doge, like the original Doge, is going to go past its all-time high. Let me see what other ADA, Cardano. I don't think that's going to go past its all-time high. Link, I don't think that's going to go past its all-time high. So yeah, most of the tokens that will probably eclipse our all-time high are things with a fresh narrative, things that are new, things with a good community. Hyperliquid is another one to look out for. I think that could go past its all-time high.
It's pretty much, it's so close already. Like it's programmed. Probably it's programmed. I'll be shocked if it doesn't, because it's pretty much already done it, to be honest.
Yeah, Hyperliquid. There's
any meme kind examples that any meme kind you think will touch all time high minus XPX? XPX is pretty much probably gonna do it close at least. But any other meme kind you think will kind of print close to its recent all time high?
I've spoken about Lofi quite a lot on this podcast, and I think that it has had a big drop since its all-time high. However, it is starting to sort of bounce back a little bit. And I think that there is scope for it to eclipse its all-time high if Sui does well. If Sui pumps to huge numbers, then Lofi will follow. But it's been steadily
100%.
sort of building a base. So I think that's one to watch out for.
Previous
I think
all-time high was 20 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
Currently 5 cents.
Exactly. And it sort of went from 2 to 3 cents, and then it pumps to like 20 cents like straight away. And I was in that move as well. So yeah, it's done well, and I think that there is scope for it to bounce back potentially, but that's very conditional upon what happens with Sui as a L1. So in terms of other memes, I'm trying to think. None really come to mind. I would have to go and study and see apart from Lofi. That's one I've been sort of keeping my eye on. But
Lofi and XPX have been doing well, and Fartcoin as well. They've been those top.
Yeah, Fartcoin might be another one actually, because that one doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, I wouldn't put money against that exploding past its all-time high. So yeah, I think those are a few to definitely keep an eye on. But with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.